You guys, we started painting. I don't even know which way it goes, but it's not done yet. It's getting into
Neither's
something.
mine.
What do you see? No, but seriously, I've been trying some new things. I've been trying some new things. You've allowed me to feel comfortable trying some new things, but it brought up a question: creativity.
Ooh.
Is it something that you just have, or is it something that you work at? Like that you can get, like I can get to creativity.
I think if you had it when you were little, you still have it.
I think everybody.
It's always there. Yeah.
Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na.
I used to play with boxes and cinder blocks. Actually, I turned it into
That's the real box.
the real blocks and box that can be grow into. You know, everybody has like an imagination when you're a kid. I feel like in creativity then, but what brought up this for me was really last year. I pick a word every year for the year, and last year the word for me was effortless joy. Because I felt like I wanted to find things that I really enjoyed doing because I honestly didn't remember what I enjoyed doing a lot besides work. I mean, and being a mom. But now I have 3 teenage girls and they don't want to hang out all the time anymore. So I'm like, okay, now what do I do at this time? So I was trying new hobbies, trying new things. I've really just tapped back into what I feel like was this creative spark with going to Renfest with you.
Renaissance Festival.
Yeah, Renaissance Festivals. Which is
up.
amazing. Yeah, you dress up. And honestly, one cool thing, side note about Renaissance Festivals, is when I went there, I felt like everyone was so accepting and just like in their zone. They were dressed up in the era that meant Renaissance Festival to them. Everybody was happy and playful, and you could feel the joy. You could feel that creativity. Then it sparked poetry writing, and now like painting and just new things. This, I feel, is something that is universal, that we forget how to play. And play for me means being creative in a sense. And I know you live by this quote.
Always a student, sometimes a teacher. Because in my classroom, I feel like I'm learning more than my students, but it's always about trying out something that might be a little uncomfortable or like, oh, the book doesn't say to do this. I'm like, forget the book, toss the book out the window. What do students really need to know? Like even in Microsoft Office class, like they don't need to know how to make a million different transitions in PowerPoint.
Really?
So, well,
no, it's not better.
You can do it, I suppose. But no, it's about like, okay, what do they really need to know, and how can I let them creatively design something? Our first assignment is actually the world's worst PowerPoint, where they have to get all that stuff out of the way and use all the horrible features of PowerPoint to get all their points. But
no, that's actually really good, because that's something that I learned. Like before, I was comfortable like just painting, or, you know, and even still now having this timidness of showcasing what I've been working on when it means something to me. I'm feeling into it and enjoying the process, right, of creating. Like, who decides whether it's good or bad? And when does that fear kind of set in to know if you're having fun or not, right? Like you can have fun and not even necessarily need somebody to grade it, right? Like, and say whether it was good or not. So I love that you talk about that, because like even going to the Renaissance Festival is like, oh my gosh, how much do I dress up? Right? Like, what do I wear? And we see this in work too. And I'm sure in the classroom, like, how do your students respond?
Believe it or not, that's a psychological hack of, you know, they're doing a bad job. And I was like, come on, you can do worse than that.
Ooh.
And they're just like, okay, fine. Like, I'm going to show you. And then they do. And then they get, it's one of those little steps towards just create it, start making. I don't care what kind of mistakes you make. I don't care what it looks like. And just get them out of that rigidness of follow steps 1 through 10, turn it in. Have to push them out of that. And they feel a little trusted to just screw it up on purpose, which actually builds a little bit of that trust. And everything in my classroom is trust-based classroom. Same thing when you're running a team is, does your team feel trusted to take risks, to
Yep.
make the mistake. Am I still going to be trusted to, that didn't work out like I thought.
Yeah.
But that's the always a student, sometimes a teacher part, is always trying that thing that's a little bit on the edge. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to let you try out your presentation in VR.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's why I hate the word boss, because I feel like when you're on the team, that allows for more people to share input. I'm like, please tell me another way that we could do things smoother, or, share with me your ideas. Because if not, I feel like the death of, honestly, like life and business is complacency. And you just keep doing the same old, same old, same old. And it's not going to work. We are meant to evolve and to create and to grow and to express art in different ways. So I love that you do that, because especially today in social media, I know, just speaking from experience with my daughters that are teenagers, they are very hesitant to go out beyond what is socially acceptable at times. And they're nervous because of what kind of feedback that they're going to get back. So they stay within this like safe zone.
Stay in the lane.
Stay in the lane. But nothing evolves in the safe lane, if you will. And nothing, when we think creativity, we think, ooh, something we haven't seen before, something that's inspiring us, something that is, moving us to do something different. But we can't do that in this zone where anyone is afraid to do something different. So it's like, who creates that creativity? Is it something you're born with, or is something you have permission to do?
So there's a couple of tactics I use for this. One is I'll ask them questions like, what do you think would be a better way to learn this? Like, this is what I came up with. They make up their own fictional companies, and then they work with these companies through all the Microsoft softwares. And that's one way. And then I actually take their answers and implement them. One of the other ones is, I'm drawing a blank now. It'll come to me.
That's okay. That's because we're in creativity mode.
Right.
The ideas come to you. I love it. I know in the past, Duncan Wardle, he worked for Disney before, and he's done some TED Talks about, asking the question when he first enters like the room, and he says, where do you get your best ideas? And he pauses for a moment and lets people respond. And they're like, in the shower. That's mine. I know yours is like while you're driving and things like that. But where do you get your best ideas? And no one says at work. And I'm sure probably not even at school, maybe at times, right? Like, because he says our brains don't feel safe or comfortable to express or to create in any environment that we do not necessarily feel safe, or where we feel stress or judgment or any of that. So you're absolutely right. Like at work, one of the things I love doing with the team is like create vision casting, or just have people spitball ideas. There's no bad ideas. There was another session I went to at Social Fresh by Jason Keat called Start with the Bad Ideas. And he was inspired by how things like Airbnb and Uber and all these like innovative companies like actually came to be in some of the marketing that they were creating. And it all started with people sharing the most outrageous, outlandish, you would never even think of it in a million years, ideas. And what that turned into is giving somebody else permission to say, oh, but what about this? Oh, but what about this? And you keep snowballing until you all create this perfect creative idea that never would have came if you were staying within the safe lane that has already been done.
One of the classic activities with that is like, you have 60 seconds, write down as many uses for a paper clip as possible besides holding paper together. So like opening a lock and, I don't know, getting a splinter out and things like that. I remember what I was going to say earlier was play, a state of flow, which is an element of play where you feel like you're not being judged on everything that you do, and you're allowed to just experiment and play. So one of the things we do in my classroom is this game called Snake Oil.
Oh, I did that in there.
Yes, you were a guest speaker in my classroom. And so you get like two cards, unrelated nouns basically, and then the judge, like apples to apples, pulls out a customer card. So they might be like a cheerleader or a hobo or a whatever, and you have to invent a product on the fly and pitch it to them.
I remember mine still that I got. It was a dating site for dogs. It was an app or something. Dating site for dogs. I don't remember everything I said, but I just remember that, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it would be a way easier way.
But
to
but you
connect.
start out with that, and then you can transition into, hey, we're doing this VR job training simulation for a factory. We need some really good ideas on what this might look like, and here's some paper and cardboard and stuff. We do what's called paper prototyping, where we literally act things out like little kids, and it gives them full permission to kind of be silly, but still meeting the goal at hand and iterating through a whole bunch of ideas, because VR is, a 3D physical space.
Yeah.
And so that's worked wonders in getting them out of the, like, okay, what do I need to code? What do I need to 3D model? It's like, no, let's make this fun.
And I know that I am a little biased. I've witnessed students that have been through your class, my daughter being one of them. I've witnessed you speaking and all that, and vice versa. You've seen team members that have worked at Now, and they're creative genius, if you will. But what I feel that is true is if you looked at somebody at the beginning of the school year toward the end, right? Or even like, I know when people have started at Now Marketing Group and they've maybe came from like a corporate America job, or maybe even just fresh out of college to, a year, 2 years in, that it is night and day difference with the confidence that they have and the willingness to share ideas and then just be playful with them. And I feel like creativity, in my opinion, I know, we've talked about this before, you agree, like it is a muscle that needs to be strengthened.
And I think part of my job is kind of the leadership role is to model the risk taking, intentionally making a fool of myself often to give them permission to do something a little different, being ridiculous in a way, but that gave them social permission, emotional, psychological permission to be like, oh, that's cool, but here, look what I can do with this. And if you get to that point, you're entering a state of flow, which is huge in gameplay, because time just passes by and the bell rings and they're like, we just got here.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're doing
that's
something
when
right then.
you're having fun.
Yeah.
It's laughter. It's this human element.
And there's another element to that is not just me modeling that and making them feel safe, is I'm very strict on not letting their peers ridicule their ideas. Because sometimes that'll kill it. No matter how playful I'm trying to be and get them to think creatively, if they don't feel safe with their peers either. And so we have a serious talk. And occasionally I do have to rein them in. Just be way too silly, get way off task. And so there is a kind of bringing things back to
productive play.
Yeah, it's productive play. Exactly.
Productive play. And once you start modeling it, you will see others begin to model it too. And I love sharing this even at Now Marketing Group, that we say, I love when people talk behind each other's back, because when they do it now, like it's like saying positive things about each other behind their back. And it wasn't what I experienced before in like different working environments, right? So it is modeled. Creativity can be modeled. It can be strengthened like a muscle, but you do have to find those areas and things, like you said, like always a student, sometimes a teacher, but finding those areas of play where you can step outside your comfort zone, invite others in to feel safe playing, and joining in, and then see what beautiful, cool new things can come out of it and what it can draw into that environment. The most successful companies today are the ones that are just agile. And that is, going back to our fear setting, analysis paralysis you were talking about, I think it's getting over that first is what can really help to generate or jumpstart this whole idea of creativity, because I feel like that's what holds people back is the fear. What if? If you can get over that, spell it out, then have a plan, like you said, the bullet list of how to stay on task with creativity. There is a place for both, and it doesn't have to be all play. It doesn't have to be all work. There is a safe place for both where everything can thrive and grow your brand in a way that I think not only you don't realize what time it is then because you're having fun doing it. And that's a good place to be. That's a really good place to be.
One example that came to mind of this playful environment was my kids are 9 and 10, boy and girl. And we watched The Parent Trap with Lindsay Lohan, and we watched behind the scenes, and she plays both sides.
Yeah.
She's both characters of the twins. And so we looked up, how did they do that? And so they had her act out person A, And then when she acted out person B, she had a bug in her ear. They called it just a speaker, a little earbud. And then my kids were like, well, can we do that? Like, let's try it. And so we filmed, the right half, the left half. You edit it together in Premiere or whatever, or DaVinci Resolve is what we use at school. And then I use that example to show it to my students of like, this is just something we saw in a movie and we tried to replicate it. And I even tell my students, I say, tell you what, I'll exempt you from both of these next assignments if you pursue that and go after it. And giving them permission to be like, I saw this on an ad and I want to try and make it. It's like, great, you do that. I will exempt you from these other assignments.
Cool. Because there's nothing like hands-on learning anyway, right? Where do you guys find creativity? Like, how do you experience it in your workplace? How do you want to become more creative? What does that look like for you? Do you think it's something you're born in with, or is it a muscle that you strengthen? I would love to know that from you. Any last finishing thoughts on creativity, or do you want to get back to painting?
Let's go paint.
All right, guys, we're gonna go. It
needs work.
We'll show you what the result is at the end of the day. All right, guys. See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.